I'm sorry that I got delayed, but I hope the residents here will feel like the good news was worth waiting for. This is, again, a special day. In 2014, when I did my first State of the City speech, I asked Detroiters, please stay. Please give us a chance. At the time, our families were moving out at the rate of 1,000 people a month, and they had been for years. Many of you saw your neighbors packing up, particularly families with young children, and moving to the suburbs and leaving behind vacant houses that nobody could sell. 47,000 vacant houses in this city in 2014. Street lights weren't operating, the parks weren't being cut. Everybody remembers what it was like. And it took some faith for people to stay. But I'm really pleased to say that the University of Michigan has been commissioned, as they were last year, to do a study on the homeowners who stayed, what's happened to wealth. And this city has been a city where families took enormous pride in the value in their homes, that they pass it down from generation to generation. In most cases, that's the way wealth was transferred in Detroit, was in the houses in our neighborhood. And I'm really pleased to say that the University of Michigan has just released a study that the homeowners in this city grew $700 million in wealth just in the last year. Since that day I stood in front of you in 2014, the homeowners have gained $4.6 billion. Just the people who own houses now. That's been the wealth growth. And it was the people who stayed who benefited the most. The other thing that when I ran and I sat in those living rooms night after night, people said to me, I'm afraid we're going to get pushed out. And new people coming in are going to make all the money, right? And it's going to be those out-of-town investors. And when an 83% African-American community elected me, I felt like there was a real responsibility to deliver. And I'm very pleased to say that of the $4.6 billion in wealth gain, $3.2 billion, almost three-quarters, has been from African-American homeowners. The people who stayed have gotten more than 70% of the benefit in the gains. So we've gone from $2.7 billion last year to $3.2 billion in black homeowner wealth in this city. Isn't this the city we're trying to build? Right? And it was the neighborhoods that started off the lowest that have seen the greatest gains. And that's the way that it should be. I want to talk about a couple more things before I turn it over to Professor Morinoff, who's going to take you through the University of Michigan study. And we commission U of M every year so that nobody says, oh, the city finance department put it out. This was an independent university study that looked at what happened. But there has been discussion about the fact I have proposed cutting the land bank's budget $5 million this year. And I feel bad because some of the coverage is like I cut their budget $5 million because they're doing a bad job. I didn't cut their budget because they're doing a bad job. In 2014, the land bank owned 47,000 houses. Today, they own less than 3,000 houses, right? We knocked them down. We sold 15,000 of those houses. That's a big part of the wealth gain. And so when you have an operation that used to maintain 47,000 and now maintains 3,000, it should cost less money, right? And it'll cost less money next year because they'll be down under 1,000. This is good. And when you take those demolished sites and you do what they've done, sold 25,000 side lots to the neighbors who stayed, right? A big part of this wealth gain is so many families who had that vacant lot next door, they were cutting that grass themselves. They bought it for $100. They put gardens next door. They put swing sets next door. They've enlarged their lots, and they built the wealth in their own property because we didn't sell those side lots to out-of-town speculators. You could not buy them unless you owned the house next door. I've taken a lot of grief about it's hard to buy lots from the land bank, and that's true. because I didn't want out-of-town speculators to be able to buy them. I wanted Detroiters to have them. If it took longer for the Detroiters to be able to be ready to take over those lots, I was willing to take that criticism, because over the long run, I believed it would pay off in this way. And so we have people, fewer and fewer and less informed, who say everything has happened downtown. This is $4.6 billion in wealth in the neighborhoods. So the next time somebody tells you nothing's happened in the neighborhoods, you can tell them there are 4.6 billion reasons that is not true. And so I'm just so proud of the 600 block clubs in this city, all those block club leaders who led this, for our Department of Neighborhoods, all the work that they've done, and the city workers who have gone block by block. And with some luck, there will be another mayor standing here a year from now, and there'll be hundreds million more in wealth gain, because the city's headed in the right direction. With that, to take you through the academic side, I want to introduce the Assistant Dean of the Ford School of Public Policy at the University of Michigan, Professor Jeffrey Morinoff.
Thank you, Mayor Duggan, and welcome to everybody. Thank you for coming out today. So my name is Jeff Morinoff, and I'm going to walk you through some of the wonky sides of our study, but also try to point out some of the main messages. And let me just start off by saying what motivated us to do this study. It was like a twofold motivation. On the one hand, we knew that a lot had already been written about the growth of housing values in the city, but we really wanted to quantify wealth as best we could. And I'm going to take you through how we did that in just a moment. And then secondly, we wanted to look at issues of equity. Like, if we do see a growth in wealth, as spoiler alert, the mayor's already alerted you we have, was that equitably distributed across racial ethnic groups and across different parts of the city, different neighborhoods? Was it just contained in the downtown and midtown areas, or was it really felt in the neighborhoods? And I'm going to take you through those findings right now. So let me start off by drawing your attention to this chart over here on your right, on my left, components of housing wealth in Detroit. And that shows you the nuts and bolts of how we came up with these estimates of wealth. What we did was, we started small. We started with neighborhoods defined as census tracts. And for each census tract, we looked at what the median home sale value was in a given year, and we looked at how many homes there were. And so we used those two pieces of information to multiply those together and get the second line on that chart, which is aggregate home value. That's like how much aggregate wealth is there in the housing values of a particular neighborhood. And the reason we drilled down to the neighborhood is because sale values vary a lot across the city. We wanted to make sure we had the best local estimates of sale values. So then we take that, we aggregate it up to the whole city, we add up all those neighborhood-specific wealth estimates, and we get the aggregate home value for the city, which in 2014 was $4.3 billion and skyrocketed to $8.9 billion by 2023. I'm sorry, I may have misspoken. It was 2014, it was $4.3 billion, 2023, $8.9 billion. Then we did this exact same process with the value of homes that have been subjected to tax foreclosure, because that's wealth being taken away from neighborhoods. And so we started local. We looked at, and we actually overestimated the value of tax foreclosures. We assumed that the homes that were being foreclosed on were worth the same amount in the neighborhood as those that were not, which is probably giving too much credit to the value of the homes that were being foreclosed on. But we wanted to be conservative about this so that we weren't overestimating wealth. And what we found there is that in 2014, there was $170.7 million in lost wealth across the city, but by 2023, that had been reduced to only $12.4 million. So when you put those two pieces of information together, the wealth that's gained through home values and the wealth that's lost from the foreclosed homes, the first one swamps the second one, and we end up with the numbers that the mayor was referring to. In 2014, the net housing wealth was $4.2 billion in 2014 and $8.8 billion in 2023. So that's the crux of our methodology. Then we started turning to issues of equity. And we disaggregated these numbers by looking by race and ethnicity and looking by type of neighborhood. So the chart over here on my right, it says figure 1 on it, shows you the racial ethnic breakdown. And this is what the mayor was referring to when he said that over 70% of the housing wealth in the city continually throughout this period, but especially now, goes to African American homeowners. There also been a huge increase in Latino home wealth. In terms of the rate of increase over time, you can see that yellow area of the chart is the Hispanic homeowners. It widens as you get later in time. That means that they're getting more, they're increasing at a rapid rate in terms of the wealth that's being generated in Latino neighborhoods. So this is not a story that is only about white homeowners. This is about a story about people of color who accrued value from the homes that they probably owned and stuck out during the Great Recession and continued to stay here and accumulate that wealth. So next we looked at neighborhoods, and this was the part that probably surprised me the most. In the report, we break it down by what the housing values were in 2014 and what the poverty rates of those neighborhoods were in 2014. So the chart over here on my right, figure 2, that's breaking it down by housing values in 2014. And we divided the city into thirds, like the neighborhoods with the lowest property values, second in the middle, and then the highest property values. And what you see, that big bar on the left, which I think says 200 and, I can't read from this distance, it's an eye test, 270-something% increase. It's almost a threefold increase in the home values of those that had the lowest home values in 2014. Let me say that again. This growth was much more profound in the parts of the city, the neighborhoods in the city that had the lowest home values in 2014 than it was in the ones that started off with the highest home values. So that's the second answer to our equity question. This was not just about the wealthy neighborhoods getting wealthier. This was about raising all boats, but especially those the neighborhoods that started off with the lowest property values. And you see the same story if you look at neighborhoods by poverty rate. The neighborhoods that started off the poorest had the most increase in housing values over time. The very final piece was to look at the geographic story and ask, was this really concentrated in like the downtown, midtown areas, or was it kind of diffused throughout the city? We have a couple of maps in the report. This one is showing the growth in black wealth, black home wealth. And the short answer is that it's not concentrated in the downtown, midtown areas. It's dispersed throughout the city. And in the report, we lay it out neighborhood by neighborhood, and I'm sure a lot of you out here and behind me can tell much better stories than I can about what's happening in some of these neighborhoods. So I'll leave it to you all to elaborate. But this is something that's pervasive, and so on all three of those equity questions, the racial ethnic breakdown, like the breakdown by poverty and the poverty of the neighborhood, and then like the geographic dispersion, we found that this was pretty equitable in terms of the growth in wealth, this great story. So just to close out, I just want to say, as the mayor said before me, this is a really great story for people who have owned homes in Detroit, and at a time when the housing market was crashing and the Great Recession hit and then bankruptcy hit, a lot of people could have left. Those who stayed, most of them are really, I think, grateful now for this growth in property values that they've been able to accumulate during that time. And it's just been a pleasure to try to document some of that and to get great help from my colleagues who helped me with this. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. And yeah, what it shows is that the neighborhoods that were hardest hit in 2014 have tripled in property values. And of course, you got people here who know this, but not far from here, the Marygrove neighborhood, you had a hard time selling those houses for $10,000 in 2014. And if you tried to sell it, they probably had a for sale by owner sign scrawled out on their front lawn. Now you drive down and you see a Century 21 sign. And that may seem like a small thing to people in the suburbs, but in this city, to see real estate signs popping up in the front of houses in neighborhoods that had long suffered was a really a big development. The report has already been posted, if you want to read the full report, on the U of M Ford site, and very shortly John Roach is going to have it posted on the city website so that everybody can look at the full report. And of course, every step of the way, City Council has been a tremendous partner in this process, and I want to introduce one of our great councilmen representing his colleagues today, Councilman Fred Durhall.
Well, good morning to you all. Today is an amazing day because it is a day that is for the folks who stuck and stayed in this city when everybody asked who was going to be the last person to turn the lights out. And today, your dedication, sticking with our city, and the sacrifices you've made, you're seeing why and how that was important. When I talk to residents across the city of Detroit, one of the biggest issues that they mention is poverty. And then the question that follows that is, how do we create generational wealth here in the city of Detroit? And during those conversations, we talk about many things, whether that's creating small businesses, whether that's generating income. But the conversation always leads to the most important component to generating generational wealth: owning property. And at one time, owning property here in the city of Detroit is either too expensive, or if you owned it, it didn't seem as if you owned something that was worth anything. I grew up in the historic Russell Woods Sullivan neighborhood. And I can remember after the 2008 foreclosure crisis, talking to many residents in that community who were sticking and staying there. They were saying, well, what does this mean now? We've got folks who are foreclosed that are moving out. What is my home going to be worth? When we look at our surrounding neighborhoods, how is that going to impact me? And those same folks today now are living in a community that has been repopulated, and their homes are valued even more. And one of the reasons why is you look at the progress we've made here in the city of Detroit, whether that's 25,000 homes that were abandoned and torn down, being demolished, whether that's the revitalization of over 180 parks here in the city of Detroit, whether that's using programs like Motor City Match to grow our commercial corridors and create small businesses. We are coming back here in the city of Detroit. And I am confident that if we stay at this pace and we continue to push forward, we will reach greater heights here in the city of Detroit. So I want to thank the mayor for his leadership as well as his team. But a lot of this also involves hearing from you and what you want to see from our city. And one of the great components of the mayor's office has been the Department of Neighborhoods, who go into the community. And I know a lot about the Department of Neighborhoods. My dad was an old neighborhood city hall manager back in the day with Coleman Young. That's where the rubber meets the road when folks talk to the constituents, find out what their needs are. And we've got a great Department of Neighborhoods here in the city of Detroit. And so it is my pleasure today to introduce our Deputy Department of Neighborhoods Director, Mr. Josh Roberson.
Thank you, Councilman Durhall. This administration 12 years ago made a promise that every neighborhood has a future. Little did we know that $4 billion of wealth later, that would be the fulfillment of a promise. And so we are excited that this promise has been fulfilled, and we are introducing neighbors today. We thought it would be appropriate for you not to just hear from U of M or the mayor's office or council members, but also from the neighbors who have experienced the fulfillment of that promise. And so I want to introduce to you all two neighbors, one on the east side, one on the west side, Mr. Jerry Sanders, who's the president of his block club. He's a veteran and a long-time, lifelong Detroiter. And Miss Mignon Padilla, who's accompanied by her husband, Jose. They're gonna come up right now and give you a testimony of what they have experienced and how they stuck and stayed. So, Mr. Sanders.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am very proud and glad to be here this morning. I'm glad that my grandson over here invited me to be. It is a privilege. I am 79, or I'll be 79 years old in July, and I've been here just short of 2 years all my life. And I came off of what they call the Black Bottom, and now I live on 8 Mile and Ryan Road. I have watched the growth and the diminish of Detroit and people moving in and out. I had 10 siblings, and they all lived in the suburbs. And they said, well, Jerry, you need to come out and be in this. I know I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna ride it out. I am very proud of you and your administration because I lived through all of this. I served through all of this. And you have brought a vibrance to the city that is phenomenal. I sit home and I watch TV and I watch the Lions, the Tigers, Pistons, okay? Each one, some kind of way, this mayor has pushed them. Campbell didn't come here with grit. It was already here, okay? He already had it. It just blown up and entered all of us. And again, as I say, I thank you for letting me say that. I thank you for the growth of this city. I have been in my home for over 20-something years, and it's just great to see the community come together. So thank you very much.
What's your birthday?
July the 10th.
I'm the 15th.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mignon Padilla. My husband and I are the owners of BAFE Construction and Design. It's a Detroit-based business, and we have lived in Detroit majority of our lives. In November 2018, we purchased our first home in the Russell Woods, Sullivan neighborhood, and we found it through the Detroit Land Bank on its Own It Now program, and purchased it for just $2,500. After making the necessary repairs to bring it up to compliance, we moved in and continued renovating at our own pace. As we improved our home, we watched the neighborhood improve as well. Blighted houses were renovated and occupied, new streetscapes and parks were added, and local businesses emerged and began to thrive, bringing a better quality of life to our community. Just recently, we had our home appraised in January. When we first bought in 2018, it was valued at only $5,000. Today, with only partial renovations done, it appraised at $205,000. It's absolutely incredible to think how much more it will be worth once it's finished being renovated. Because we purchased our home in cash, we have no mortgage or loans, giving us 100% equity. It's truly a blessing to see our home's value grow, giving us the ability to build generational wealth without the burden of high property taxes, thanks to the principal resident exemption and other programs in the city. We love our home, community, and city, and can't wait to see what the next couple of years will bring. Thank you.
What great stories. We also thought it fitting to get another perspective, and so we wanted to bring in professionals that are Detroit-based realtors, and I want to ask Ms. Miranda Bartell and Mr. Ishma Best to come up and give their story.
Thank you, Josh, and I'd like to say thank you, Mayor, for the invitation as well. Miranda Morrow Bartell. I sit on the board also for Detroit Land Bank, appointed by the mayor himself. So, but I do definitely understand what you're saying about how the values has come up just by seeing it from being a realtor for 19 years and seeing the ebbs and flow of the ups and downs. We are on the ups. When I say we're on the ups, we are definitely on the ups. The values has increased once again, probably triple the values in some neighborhoods. I would say this is that when I first got started in real estate, the market was stable. And what those values were then in 2006, the values are twice that amount now. In 2008, we went into the foreclosure boom. The values decreased, dropped very low. The market needs to become stable again. Thank you to the city of Detroit, Mayor Duggan. Thank you to his city council for making sure they had the thorough way of the main strips in the communities developed. Because without the development of the main corridors, there's no services. So which means that buyers may not want to buy. But buyers saw what the city of Detroit was doing, so buyers started buying those foreclosed properties for dirt cheap, pennies on the dollar, the $10,000, the $20,000, the $30,000, and now they're looking at equity in their homes of $200,000 and $300,000, and some $500,000 to $700,000 in equity. Okay, so this is what Detroit has to give back. Knowing the opportunities that you have in the city of Detroit is phenomenal to know that you can create generational wealth for your family. Generational wealth is created through the avenue of real estate. If you don't own the piece of real estate will own you. You don't want the real estate to own you because you want to one day be able to pull equity out of that house to send your kids off to college. You want to be able to pull equity out of your house to create your own business. So home ownership is very key. As a past president of a real estate organization here in Detroit, our whole goal and mantra is Black home ownership matters. And if Black home ownership doesn't matter, that's a problem. Mayor Duggan has done what he needs to do to make sure that he increased the Black home ownership by giving those opportunities and making sure that you have the NEZ, the tax assessment, making sure that our buyers are able to stay and be stabilized in the city of Detroit with the values and the corridors and the community thriving again. We once lived in a community all over again. And thank you once again, Mayor Duggan, City Council, Josh, and your team, administration. Great job.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ishma Best. I'm the co-founder of Prep Realty. I actually moved here in 2018 from Brooklyn, New York, where I did see a strong rise in home values. And I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Josh. Where I'm able to take part more than just an investor, but actually take part in helping homeowners achieve that generational wealth, achieve the biggest form of wealth in America, which is real estate. And just the rise of the home values in Detroit is just a testament to the city's growth, the city's investment, the city's revitalization. And I'm extremely proud to be a realtor here in Detroit. I feel like every time I sell a home to a first-time home buyer, it is the gift that keeps on giving. Every January, I call my clients and I give an equity report. And I'm proud to say that in this January, just the past year alone, I tallied all the numbers and it was over $2 million of equity that I provided for homeowners just in the past year alone, and that's just in 1 year. So I think that the city's rising home value is great, not just for homeowners, but for investors and for the community in total. And I'm extremely proud to take part in that. A huge part of what I do as a broker is education and being able to speak on the rising home values, which I saw in my hometown, and I'm able to honor and take part in the city that I live in now. And I brought my wife over with me, I brought my wife's parents over with me, I brought friends over with me, and we are all enjoying this not only as business people, but as residents of the city of Detroit. So I am a proud resident of the city of Detroit. I'm a proud realtor in the city of Detroit, and I'm so thankful for just all the moving parts that have helped to increase the growth and revitalization of this city and make me really proud to do my job. So thank you all for being here today, and thank you.
And I also want to introduce Nikhil Patel, our great treasurer, who has overseen this. But for people who bought houses in Detroit a year ago, sold by these agents, values went up 20% in 1 year. It's just another good year in Detroit. With that, we'll take any questions. Well, I get the complaints. The only time we go and ticket people leaving their trash cans out is when the neighbors call the Department of Neighborhoods and say they don't want to look at it. And we go out the first time, Gary, and we stick a warning on your thing to warn you. And the first time is a warning, second time is $50. Very rarely do we ever get to the second time. So if you miss the first warning, we'll work it out with you. But we aren't running around inspecting garbage cans. We are responding to your neighbors, calling the Department of Neighborhood saying, my neighbor is not being responsible in bringing it back. And on Herman Kiefer, let's be clear this, we've sued the owners of those Herman Kiefer properties. We're taking back the houses that they did not make their standards on, and we are being consistent. Now, you heard from the family that's in Russell Woods, and as long as you have bought a land bank property and you are making progress, we give you more and more time, right? And so you show us the picture of the progress, but we've had some land bank properties where a year later nothing's been done. And again, we respond to the neighbor complaints. The neighbors call up and say, that person bought that vacant house a year ago. They promised to start fixing it up within 6 months, and they haven't done it. We are responding to the aspirations of the neighbors in the community and the enforcement, and I don't apologize for that enforcement. Go ahead. Yeah. So, buildingdetroit.org. We auction 3 houses every single day. You can go on your website right now and build it. There'll be 3 more tomorrow. You can see all the auctions scheduled for the next week. But we have sold, really for the next month, we've sold 15,000. And one of my favorite ones is the Department of Neighborhoods. When we have a group in a neighborhood, we actually go out to the neighborhood and say we're going to put 5 or 6 up together, and the neighbors call their relatives, their friends, saying, hey, this is a great neighborhood, come in and bid. We've had a number of cases where neighbors' relatives have won the auction.
I have a lot behind me I've been trying to get for a year.
Yeah.
But it's the real process. They say wait for 6 months, then they say
Okay.
wait for a year.
So Gary, 25,000 other people have figured it out. The process is that if the land bank owns a parcel free and clear, you can buy it for $100. Now, if they've demolished the property, the feds had required us to put a lien on it to make sure we didn't turn it around and send it to a speculator. That lien has to clear, and then we'll sell it to you for $100. But we managed 25,000 of your fellow citizens have figured out how to buy a side lot for $100. But we can get, is Kim Tandy still here? Kim, maybe you could help him through the process to figure out how to buy it. Go ahead, yes.
So you talked about those who stayed, and so I wonder if you could talk about just the sheer number of both Black and Hispanic homeowners. Has that number changed through 2014 to 2020? Are there more?
Yeah, we're seeing the annual census numbers. I think the African American share of the city has gone from like 83% to 78 or 79% over the last 11 or 12 years, but I think the Latino population has grown slightly in that time, but it's pretty stable. You have, the thing that I care about the most is I went into the poorest neighborhoods in this city when I campaigned in 2013, people who thought they had no hope, Midwest, over at Tyron and Livernois, the like, and I said, stick with us. And those are the neighborhoods that have grown the most. It took a while to get going, but the Joe Louis Greenway, we can talk about a lot of things, the Joe Louis Greenway just exploded property values. Every place we tore those railroad tracks and those tires out and put a park in between. And so if Jeffrey did a more detailed one, I bet you it would show that the area around the Joe Louis Greenway, which winds through a lot of neighborhoods in the city that have been forgotten, is growing the most. Go ahead, let's take a question in the back. Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I'm the president of Fieldhouse Block Club, and thank you guys. You are absolutely correct. The gateway to generational wealth is through property. You're absolutely correct. I'm worried about my low-income seniors. I'm worried about not even just seniors, but low income. My home has, as the lady has mentioned, my home does in property value. But I'm worried about my neighbor, who won because after a while, if your block flourish, that still affects everyone. So some of my seniors are on low income and can't afford that increase.
Are they renters or are they homeowners? And so the great thing about the Michigan Constitution is that your property taxes can only go up at the rate of inflation. And so we saw this past year, home values went up 20%, the taxes went up 3%. And we have a program here for people of low income, and by and large for seniors who basically are on Social Security, where your property taxes can be waived entirely. Because we don't want somebody who raised their families in the house living on Social Security to be pushed out of that house. Nikhil, you want to talk about how that program works?
Good morning, everyone. Absolutely. So the program works through an application process joint with the state of Michigan and the city of Detroit. Senior citizens can reach out, call the Detroit Taxpayer Customer Service Center at the city of Detroit, where the assessor's office and the treasury office members can help walk through individuals and how that application process works. It's the senior property tax. There's two programs. One program, the property tax program that can defer property tax payments until February, and another exemption program for seniors that will reduce the total amount of property tax. The other program I want to highlight is the solid waste fee reduction program, where senior citizens and individuals with lower income can apply and get their solid waste fee reduced as well. And so please do reach out to the customer service department at the Treasury Department, and we'd be happy to walk individuals through, or come into City Hall and we can sit down with any individuals and walk them through that process.
And so we have 10,000 low-income senior homeowners who pay no property taxes because of that program, and it's easy to get in and apply to, and you'll find all the information on the website. Yes?
My name is Tamara Perry. As a taxpayer, I have concern about the abandoned school buildings. What is being done in the community for all these school buildings that are abandoned that can be turned into community centers or senior living facilities or address some of the homeless issues? What is the city doing to address that? Because they're abandoned and now they're being, let's say, vandalized. And so I want to know what is the city doing to assist in that.
So Dr. V and I have talked about this. The great majority are owned by the Detroit Public Schools. And so we insist that they be brought up to code. We have started, though. St. Matthew's over on Whittier, the old grade school, is being finished right now, renovated for senior housing. Transfiguration on the east side was converted to affordable housing. There have been some smaller schools that have been converted. You get into those big schools, and it's been extremely expensive. But the city ones we have tried to demolish or market. Most of them, though, have been owned by the Detroit Public Schools. And Dr. Vitti, I think you ought to talk to your school board members, because I'd like to see it move faster. We'll take one more. Go ahead, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Colleen. I live in District 4. One of
right?
and exploiting their renters.
Right.
And I'm curious what your administration
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
you and what you hope the next administration.
So I'm going to be honest with you about what we can do and what we can't do. You had people in this city who bought abandoned houses and fixed them up and leased them out when this city was going the wrong way, and they have raised rents. They are legally entitled to do that. If you're a property owner in this country, you're entitled to buy a house and rent it out. And I don't have, the city has no legal authority to restrict rent. You don't have rent control statutes allowed in the state of Michigan. But what we've been doing instead, in partnership with council, is we have built $1.2 billion in new affordable housing. In fact, if you came up Myers on the way here, you saw next door Hartford Village that was built by the Hartford Church, which is low-income seniors, and next to that is the Lewis low-income housing. But we've got 6,000 units being built across the city. So I can't stop a private landlord from renting at market rate, but what I can do is provide thousands more options in the city so nobody is pushed out because of the wealth. We'll be here and we'll answer any more individual questions, but thank you all very much for coming.